For 6 decades, the wreck of HMS Hood lay entombed in the abyssal blackness of the North Atlantic, its shattered remnants a silent sentinel to one of naval history's greatest enigmas. The Battle of the Denmark Strait in 1941 had claimed her in a cataclysmic instant, sparking endless debate among historians, survivors' families, and naval experts. What infernal force could rend the Unsinkable pride of the Royal Navy asunder in mere minutes? Then, in the summer of 2001, a fleet of robotic submersibles, deployed by oceanographer David Mearns and his Blue Water Recoveries team aboard the survey vessel Northern Horizon, plunged 2,800 meters, nearly 9,200 feet, into the crushing depths, their cameras piercing the gloom at precise coordinates 63 degrees 22 minutes north, 31 degrees 50 minutes west. After 39 hours of side-scan sonar sweeps across a vast search box anchored to the last plotted position from HMS Prince of Wales, what they revealed, a fractured hull strewn across the seabed in a debris field spanning over half a mile, shattered the official narrative and delivered irrefutable proof, rewriting the annals of World War II's pivotal sea battles. The expedition, commissioned by Channel 4 for a documentary marking the 60th anniversary, not only located Hood but also surveyed her sister victim Bismarck, confirming the battlecruisers after magazines had detonated catastrophically, with the stern starboard plating peeled outward like flayed skin from an internal overpressure blast. Hallmarks of 112 tons of cordite igniting in a chain reaction that bisected the ship on the surface. Launched on August 15, 1918, as the world's largest warship, HMS Hood embodied Britain's unyielding maritime supremacy. At 42,100 tons displacement and 860 feet, 262 meters, long, she was a floating fortress, her sleek lines evoking both elegance and menace, armed with 8 15-inch, 381 mm, guns and 4 twin turrets capable of hurling 1,938 pound, 879 kilograms, armor-piercing capped, APC, shells up to 29,000 yards, 26.5 kilometers. Yet her birth was marred by compromise, rooted in the pre-dreadnought era's obsession with speed over all-out protection, a philosophy championed by Admiral Sir John "Jackie" Fisher. Construction began in 1916 at John Brown and Company's Clydebank Yard, just as the Battle of Jutland, May 31 to June 1, 1916, exposed the vulnerabilities of British battlecruisers, thin deck armor and inadequate anti-flash measures that allowed propellant fires to flash down to magazines, detonating 3 ships, Indefatigable, Queen Mary, and Invincible, in spectacular fireballs. Jutland's postmortem pinned the losses on Cordite's volatility rather than direct penetrations, prompting a frantic redesign of Hood without a full rebuild. Over 7,000 tons of extra steel were piled on, ballooning displacement from 36,300 tons and delaying completion by 4 years. The main belt thickened to 12 inches, 305 mm, angled outward at 10 degrees for effective 13.5 inch, 343 mm, thickness against horizontal fire, the middle belt to 7 inches, 178 mm, the upper belt to 5 inches, 127 mm, and decks layered unevenly, 1.25 inches, 32 mm, forecastle, averaging 1.875 inches, 48 mm, main deck over magazines, with added 3-inch, 76 mm, slopes near vital spaces. Barbettes reached 12 to 15 inches, 305 to 381 mm, but turret roofs were a mere 5 inches, 127 mm, and bulkheads varied from 4 to 8 inches, 102 to 203 mm. These hasty modifications bowed her bow under the weight, slashing freeboard by 3 feet, 0.9 meters, and making her ship green seas in Atlantic gales, while the patchwork left blind spots for plunging fire at ranges beyond 16,000 yards, 14.6 kilometers, where shells arced at 14 to 18 degrees angles of fall. By 1941, Hood's defenses were a 25-year-old relic, her double-based cordite propellant, prone to auto-ignition at temperatures as low as 350 degrees Fahrenheit 177 degrees Celsius and flashing over 21 inches 530 millimeters from a spark, far riskier than single-base alternatives used by the U.S. Navy. Live firing trials in 1920 had already warned of doom. A 15-inch shell could pierce the 7-inch midbelt and 2-inch, 51 mm, deck slope, detonating amid cordite stacks. Proposed 1941 refits, new Parsons geared turbines for 32 knots, 5, 6-inch, 127 to 152 mm, forward deck armor, and upgraded fire controls, were shelved by war's outbreak in 1939. Instead, relentless patrols from the Mediterranean to the Arctic eroded her vitals. A turbine failure after the 1940 Mers El Kabir raid required 6 dockyard patches, leaving her limping at 26.5 knots max, 5 knots shy of design speed, against fresher foes. When she sortied from Scapa Flow on May 22, 1941, under Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland, flanked by the brand-new Prince of Wales and 6 destroyers, 2 detached en route, Hood carried the ghosts of half-measures into the fray, her crew of 1,418, including 100 teenagers, unaware they sailed toward apocalypse. May 24, 1941, dawn's pale light filtered through fog-shrouded ice floes in the Denmark Strait, a 300-mile wide, 483 kilometers, channel between Greenland and Iceland, where wind howled at force 4 to 5 from the north, visibility hovered at 9 to 22 miles, 14.5 to 35 kilometers, and seas rolled at state 3 to 4. At 5:30 a.m., zone -2 time, Holland's force, Hood leading 1,000 yards ahead of Prince of Wales, sighted masts on the horizon at 28,000 yards, 25.6 kilometers, northwest. Admiral Gunther Lütjen's raiders, Bismarck, 41,700 tons, 815-inch/38 cm guns, and heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen, 10,000 tons, 88-inch/20.3 cm guns, breaking out for Atlantic commerce raids. Misidentifying Prinz Eugen's sleeker silhouette as Bismarck, Hood bore down on converging courses, British 340 to 300 degrees, Germans 240 degrees, closing at 870 yards per minute. Action station sounded at 5:15 a.m. At 5:35 a.m., lookouts confirmed 2 ships at 335 degrees, range 38,000 yards, 34.7 kilometers. Holland signaled GIC. Engage enemy more distant, then GOBI. General action, ordering 28 knots and a 40 degrees port swing to 300 degrees at 5:37 a.m., positioning Prince of Wales 4 cables, 730 m, off Hood's starboard quarter. At 5:52 a.m., from 25,000 yards, 22.9 kilometers, beyond Hood's optimal 15,000 to 18,000 yards, her forward turrets, A and B, thundered open fire, salvos straddling Prinz Eugen with 1,900-pound shells screaming like freight trains, time of flight 35 seconds. Prince of Wales joined at 5:53 a.m., her 6th salvo, 514-inch/356 mm guns operational, Y turret jammed, falling over. To unmask aft turrets, X and Y, Captain Ralph Kerr ordered a 20 to 40 degrees starboard turn to southwest at 5:55 a.m., exposing Hood's beam and vulnerable aft quarter to Bismarck's superior Zeiss fire control radars and Dawn's silhouette advantage, Hood backlit against the horizon, Germans shrouded in haze. Bismarck replied at 5:53 a.m. from 26,000 yards, her first 4-gun salvo short ahead of Hood, the second over astern, the third astraddle with a hit amidships from Prinz Eugen's 8-inch high-explosive round at 5:58 a.m., igniting cordite in the port after 4-inch, 102 mm, mounting an aircraft hangar. Yellow flames licked the boat deck, smoke fouling the mainmast, but damage parties quenched it within seconds. Prinz Eugen shifted to Prince of Wales, her shells cratering the compass platform. At 5:56 a.m., as range closed to 16,500 yards, 15.1 kilometers, Holland signaled another 20 degrees port turn to unmask after guns, but Bismarck's fifth broadside, fired at 5:55 and 50 seconds a.m., shells arcing at 14 degrees fall over 28 seconds, whispered death. Eyewitnesses aboard Prince of Wales glimpsed a flash amid Hood's tripod mainmast, followed by an inferno, a column of flame shooting up from forward of the mainmast, obliterating the entire after portion. Captain John Leach radioed at 6:01 a.m., a pillar of black smoke, recalled survivor Ordinary Signalman Ted Briggs from Hood's transmitting station, then an orange flash that swallowed the ship whole, debris flying like confetti. Leading sick berth attendant Bob Tilburn, one of 3 survivors, alongside Briggs and midshipman William Dundas, peered from the poop deck, seeing Germans' orange muzzle flares closing in. Suddenly, a huge pall of smoke blotted everything out. The ship shuddered like she'd hit a wall. Able seaman Robert Eason added, "It was a low rumble, not a bang, like the gates of hell opening." In under 4 minutes, from 6 to 6:03 a.m., apocalypse unfolded. A muffled whoosh or deep roar heralded the end. Gases from 18.5 tons of 4-inch cordite flashed down trunks to the adjacent 15-inch magazines, X and Y, holding 94 tons total, igniting 112 tons in a millisecond fireball exceeding 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit 2,760 degrees Celsius. Hood sheared in 2 amidships at frame 265, just forward of the afterbar betts, her bow rearing 30 degrees skyward like a dying leviathan before plunging stern-first into the 32 degrees Fahrenheit 0 degrees Celsius abyss at 20 knots. The stern cartwheeled, ejecting 15-inch turrets like spent cartridges. X-turret hurled 100 feet, 30 meters, as black smoke towered 2,000 feet, 610 meters. The midships block flipped inverted. A secondary partial detonation may have sheared the bow forward of a turret. Of 1,418 souls, boys barely 16 to grizzled chiefs, only 3 clawed from the oil-slicked freezer, Briggs, propelled upward by escaping air, Eason, and Dundas. Rescued 2 hours later by HMS Electra's whaler amid 10-foot, 3m, swells and U-boat fears, Electra claimed 127 bodies before scuttling them to evade torpedoes. They bore witness to a vanishing act too swift for screams or salvation, the high toll from imploding hulls trapping most below decks. The Admiralty's initial communiqué at 11 p.m. on May 24 was terse. An unlucky hit detonated a magazine, but privately stunned, Hood has blown up. 2 inquiries followed amid national mourning, the worst single-ship loss in Royal Navy history. Vice Admiral Sir Geoffrey Blake's June 1941 board, reviewing Prince of Wales' log and 40 witnesses, pinned it on a plunging 15-inch shell breaching the aft 15-inch magazines at 16,500 yards. Rear Admiral Harold Walker's September probe, grilling 176 eyewitnesses, including Germans via interrogations, refined this. Ignition likely in the amidships 4-inch ready-use lockers, 200 shells each, cordite exposed via open hatches, the blast flashing down 4-inch, 102 mm, bulkheads and 18-inch, 457 mm. Ventilators to X and Y magazines, a chain reaction venting via 6-foot square, 1.8 m, mainmast ducts in a 1,000-foot, 305 m, flame jet before the stern's full rupture. Yet without wreckage, doubt festered, hit probability was low, 3 to 5% per salvo at range, and the noiseless flash suggested subsonic combustion, not shell detonation. Was it a single catastrophic shell? A deck-stowed torpedo, 28 carried aft, 500 pounds TNT warheads, detonating like a fuse from Prince Eugen's hit? An errant cordite flare in a turret hoist, echoing Jutland? Or a tragic internal mishap, boiler explosion or propulsion fault from worn turbines? Historians clashed like broadsides. The one-hit wonder narrative seemed too pat for such annihilation, with cordite's 21-inch flash range enabling propagation. Alternatives proliferated. torpedo theorist Angus Goodall posited a Prinz Eugen round cooking off deck charges. Nathan Lawrenson's 2024 paper invoked metal fatigue from a Mers El-Kabir turbine failure, causing vibration shutters before the blast. Others invoked Jutland's echoes, Cordite's volatility sparking unchecked. Eyewitness fog clouded all. Germans saw multiple jets from engine vents. British noted a 6 to 7 degrees starboard list then port capsize. For the bereaved, families denied even bodies, as Electra buried 127 at sea. Speculation was salt in the wound, closure demanded truth, not shadows. As naval analysts Bill Jurens, William Garsk, and Robert Doolin noted in their 2019 ballistic reconstruction, echoing 2001 forensics, the debate was a Rorschach blot of scant data, plausible paths, no certainties until the deep yielded secrets. Redemption came from the deep. Mearns, armed with Prince of Wales' last fix, 6:01 a.m. bearing 180 degrees, 15 miles distant, and declassified plots, launched the July 6 to 20, 2001, expedition. Side-scan sonar, towing a Klein 5500 unit at 300 meters depth, raked the barren seafloor at 1.5 knots, its 455/900 kHz pings echoing like ghostly heartbeats across 2,000 square nautical miles. After 39 grueling hours, a debris trail materialized, a mile-long, 1.6 kilometers, scar of twisted steel, boots, and crockery, pointing like an accusation toward the source. The ROV Magellan, a 2.4-ton work-class vehicle with 7 thrusters, descended on July 13, its LED beams carving light from void. At 9,000 feet, 2,743 meters, the bow emerged, capsized to port, eerily intact from stem to frame 130, forward of a turret, but with a 50-foot, 15 m, section missing amidships, suggesting a late secondary blast from the forward magazine's partial cook-off, hurling debris 200 yards, 183 meters, distant. But unity was illusion. The midships, boilers, engines, for 4-inch mounts, and conning tower, lay inverted and eviscerated 100 yards, 91 meters, north, a 300-foot, 91 m, mangled testament to unimaginable force, bulkheads buckled like tin, propeller shafts kinked at 45 degrees angles. Worst, the stern, sundered 600 yards, 549 meters, southeast and tilted 20 degrees from vertical, its fracture precisely at frame 280, forward of X and Y barbettes and rudder post, with 15-inch, 381 mm, turret rings splayed outward and starboard plating, originally 12-inch belt, curled like flayed flesh from an internal overpressure exceeding 10,000 psi, gases racing along 20-foot, 6 m, fuel voids, 8-inch, 203 mm, armored bulkheads, and uptakes, not a clean external puncture. The rudder remained locked hard 20 to 30 degrees to port, freezing the fatal turn in brass. No torpedo scars, warp tubes or blister damage, marred the hull. Goodall's hypothesis crumbled. Absent were entry wounds from a direct magazine strike through 6.35-inch, 161 mm, total decking. Instead, the 4-inch handling rooms above offered the breach, a 15-inch, 380 mm, shell from Bismarck, arcing at shallow 13.9 degrees angle from 18,100 yards, 16.6 kilometers, struck the 3-inch, 76 mm, deck slope over the lockers at 43 degrees obliquity. Resolved velocity 532 meters per second punching 240 mm through plating before a 0.033 to 0.070 second base fuse delay detonated amid 18.5 tons of propellant. The fireball spewed downward through 4-inch hatches and trunks, igniting 100 tons of cordite. The pressure wave, millions of psi in milliseconds, ejected turrets, X-roof found 50 yards away, buckled the after armored transverse bulkhead, and bisected the ship on the surface before implosion. A secondary flare may have nibbled the bow, but the aft cataclysm was progenitor and executioner, the rapid 3-minute sink, bow at 30 degrees trim, stern vertical, trapping all but 3 in air pockets crushed at 90 psi per 10 meters depth. Hood Seabed Autopsy, conducted reverently under the 2002 Protection of Military Remains Act, amended 1986, with a "look but don't touch" ethos as a war grave cradling 1,415 unrecovered heroes, transformed conjecture into chronicle, revisited in 2012, aborted by weather, and 2015 expeditions that recovered her bell from 100 feet, 30 meters depth. It affirmed the Admiralty's core, magazine detonation, initiated indirectly via the 4-inch spaces at 5:56 a.m., not plunging fire's triumph but a lethal convergence of design thrift, uneven 1.875-inch decking versus Bismarck's 4.7-inch/120 mm main deck, gunnery evolution, German 45% hit rate via radar, and battlefield happenstance. The 20 degrees turns exposure. The wreck whispers of hubris, the battlecruiser's swan song, echoed in the swift falls of Repulse, December 10, 1941, and Prince of Wales, same day, to Japanese air power. Recovered in 2015, Hood's bell tolls now at Portsmouth's National Museum of the Royal Navy, inscribed with crew names, a requiem for lost valor. Her story endures not as defeat, but caution. Even titans forged in compromise can shatter under the weight of time, tide, and a single well-aimed shell. In the Denmark Strait's eternal chill, Hood rests, not hidden, but honored, a forge of history's unyielding fire.